Many, many men my age and in my income bracket who write about their dead brothers in enchanting semi-diary form never even bother to give us dates or tell us where they are. No sense of collaboration. I've vowed not to let that happen to me. This is Thursday, and I'm back in my horrible chair. It's 1:45 in the morning, and I've been sitting here since 10 trying, while the physical Seymour is on the page, to find a way to introduce him as athlete and gamesman without excessively irritating anybody who hates sports and games. I'm dismayed and disgusted, really, to find I can't get into it unless I start with an apology. For one reason, I happen to belong to an English department of which at least 2 members are well on their way to becoming established repertory modern poets, and a third member is a literature critic of enormous chic here on the academic Eastern Seaboard, a rather towering figure among Melville specialists. All 3 of these men, they have great soft spots for me too, as you might imagine, make what I tend to regard as a somewhat too public rush at the height of the professional baseball season for a television set and a bottle of cold beer. Unfortunately, this small ivy-covered stone is a little less devastating for the circumstance that I throw it from a solid glass house. I've been a baseball fan myself all my life, and I don't doubt that there's an area inside my skull that must look like a birdcage bottom of old shredded sports sections. In fact, and I consider this the last word in intimate writer-reader relations, probably one of the reasons I stayed on the air for well over 6 consecutive years as a child was that I could tell the folks in Radioland what the Wayner boys had been up to all week, or, still more impressive, how many times Cobb had stolen third in 1921 when I was 2. Am I still a trifle touchy about it? Have I still not made my peace with the afternoons of youth when I fled reality via the 3rd Avenue L to get to my little womb off third base at the Polo Grounds? I can't believe it. Maybe it's partly because I'm 40 and I think it's high time all the elderly boy riders were asked to move along from the ballparks and the bull rings. No. I know, my God, I know why I'm so hesitant to present the aesthete as athlete. I haven't thought of this in years and years, but this is the answer. There used to be an exceptionally intelligent and likable boy on the radio with S and me, one Curtis Caulfield, who was eventually killed during one of the landings in the Pacific. He trotted off with Seymour and me to Central Park one afternoon, where I discovered he threw a ball as if he had 2 left hands, like most girls, in short, and I can still see the look on Seymour's face at the sound of my critical horse laugh, stallion laugh. How can I explain away this deep type analysis? Have I gone over to the other side? Should I hang out my shingle? Out with it. S loved sports and games, indoors or outdoors, and was himself usually spectacularly good or spectacularly bad at them, seldom anything in between. A couple of years ago, my sister Franny informed me that one of her earliest memories is of lying in a, quote, bassinet, end of quote, like an infanta, I gather, and watching Seymour play ping pong with someone in the living room. In reality, I think the bassinet she has in mind was a battered old crib on casters that her sister Boo Boo used to push her around in, all over the apartment, bumping her over door sills till the center of activity was reached. It's more than possible, though, that she did watch Seymour play ping pong when she was an infant, and his unremembered and apparently colorless opponent could easily have been myself. I was generally dazed into complete colorlessness when I played ping pong with Seymour. It was like having Mother Callie herself on the other side of the net, multi-armed and grinning and without a particle of interest in the score. He banged, he chopped, he went after every second or third ball as though it were a lob and dully smashable. Roughly 3 out of 5 of Seymour's shots either went into the net or way the hell off the table, so it was virtually a volleyless game you played with him. This was a fact, though, that never quite caught his undivided attention, and he was always surprised and abjectly apologetic when his opponent at length complained loudly and bitterly about chasing his balls all over the goddamn room, under chairs, couch, piano, and in those nasty places behind shelved books. He was equally crashing and equally atrocious at tennis. We played often, especially my senior year in college in New York. He was already teaching at the same institution, and there were many days, especially in spring, when I dreaded conspicuously fair weather, because I knew some young man would fall at my feet like the minstrel boy with a note from Seymour saying, "Wasn't it a marvelous day, and what about a little tennis later?" I refused to play with him on the university courts, where I was afraid some of my friends, or his, especially some of his fishier collagen, might spot him in action, and so we usually went down to Rip's courts on 96th Street, an old hangout of ours. One of the most impotent stratagems I've ever devised was to deliberately keep my tennis racket and sneakers at home rather than in my locker on campus. It had one small virtue, though. I usually got a modicum of sympathy while I was dressing to meet him on the courts. And not infrequently, one of my sisters or brothers trooped compassionately to the front door with me to help me wait for the elevator. At all card games, without exception, go fish, poker, casino, hearts, old maid, auction, or contract, slapjack, blackjack, he was absolutely intolerable. The go fish games were watchable, however. He used to play with the twins when they were small, and he was continually dropping hints to them to ask him if he had any fours or jacks, or elaborately coughing and exposing his hand. At poker, too, he was stellar. I went through a short period in my late teens when I played a semi-private, strenuous losing game of turning into a good mixer, a regular guy, and I had people in frequently to play poker. Seymour often sat in on these sessions. It took some effort not to know when he was loaded with aces because he'd sit there grinning, as my sister put it, like an Easter bunny with a whole basket full of eggs. Worse still, he had a habit of holding a straight or a full house or better and then not raising or even calling somebody he liked across the table who was playing along with a pair of tens. He was a limit at 4 out of 5 outdoor sports. During our elementary school days when we lived at 110th and the Drive, there was usually a choose-up game of some kind going on in the afternoon, either on the side streets, stickball, roller skate hockey, or more often on a patch of grass, a fair-sized dog run near the statue of Kossuth, or Riverside Drive, football or soccer. At soccer or hockey, Seymour had a way singularly unendearing to his teammates of charging downfield, often brilliantly, and then stalling to give the opposing goalie time to set himself in an impregnable position. Football he very seldom played, and almost never unless one team or the other was short a man. I played it constantly. I didn't dislike violence. I was mostly just scared to death of it, and so had no real choice but to play. I even organized the damn games. On the few occasions when S joined the football games, there was no way of guessing beforehand whether he was going to be an asset or a liability to his teammates. More often than not, he was the first boy picked in a choose-up game because he was definitely snaky-hipped and a natural ball carrier. If in midfield, when he was carrying the ball, he didn't suddenly elect to give his heart to an oncoming tackler, he was a distinct asset to his side. As I say, though, there was no real telling ever whether he'd help or hinder the cause. Once, at one of the very rare and savory moments when my own teammates grudgingly allowed me to take the ball around one of the ends, Seymour, playing for the opposite side, disconcerted me by looking overjoyed to see me as I charged in his direction, as though it were an unexpected and enormously providential chance encounter. I stopped almost dead short, and someone, of course, brought me down in neighborhood talk like a ton of bricks. That's good. I'm going on too long about this, I know, but I really can't stop now. As I've said, he could be spectacularly good at certain games, too. Unpardonably so, in fact. By that I mean there is a degree of excellence in games or sports that we especially resent seeing reached by an unorthodox opponent, a categorical bastard of some kind, a formless bastard, a showy bastard, or just a plain 100% American bastard, which, of course, runs the gamut from somebody who uses cheap or inferior equipment against us with great success all the way down the line to a winning contestant who has an unnecessarily happy, good face. Only one of Seymour's crimes when he excelled at games was formlessness, but it was a major one. I'm thinking of 3 games especially: stoop ball, curb marbles, and pocket pool. Pool I'll have to discuss another time. It wasn't just a game with us, it was almost a Protestant Reformation. We shot pool before or after almost every important crisis of our young manhood. Stoop ball, for the information of rural readers, is a ball game played with the support of a flight of brownstone steps or the front of an apartment building. As we played it, a rubber ball was thrown against some architectural granite fancywork, a popular Manhattan mixture of Greek, Ionic, and Roman Corinthian molding, along the facade of our apartment house about waist high. If the ball rebounded into the street or over to the far sidewalk and wasn't caught on the fly by someone on the opposing team, it counted as an infield hit, as in baseball. If it was caught, and this was more usual than not, the player was